first time speaking from this particular podium. I am a graduate of this business school, although this building didn't exist when I was here. I graduated in 2012, and I'm here to offer a little bit of a different perspective. I come at this not as a seasoned business professional or as an academic. I come at it as a former student, fairly early in my career, and I want to offer some more personal thoughts, some more thoughts about what does it actually mean to, say, study Canadian business history? What does it mean in the context of an MBA program? And tell you a little bit about, why do I feel so strongly about this, which I do. And when Joe asked me a few months ago to be part of this panel, I said, of course. My comments are going to be divided into 4 parts. First, I'm going to talk about why, as an MBA student, I chose to take a course on Canadian business history. I'm then going to talk a little bit about the course itself to give you a sense of, again, what does it actually mean? What are we really talking about in the context of education and what I got out of it? Third, I will offer some thoughts on why the study of Canadian business history is so important and is so useful. And fourth, I'm going to offer you some thoughts for the future. So turning to my first point, why did I, at least, I think everyone has a different reason, but why did I decide to take a course on Canadian business history when offered with so many different options within my studies? First, I think it's important for me to offer you just a little bit of personal background. I'm from Toronto, born and raised my whole life, and then I left. I went to the U.S. to do my undergraduate degree at Harvard. But I always knew I wanted to come back to Toronto, have my career here, have my life here, my family. And so I decided that it was wise to come back for my graduate studies. I enrolled in the University of Toronto in the joint law MBA program, in which students earn both a law degree and an MBA in 4 years. So not only did I have all the courses at this school, I had all the courses at that other school near Queen's Park, and I had a whole bunch of requirements and restrictions and, intensity around me. But even in the context of all of that, I knew I was going to take this course. And I'm going to offer you a few thoughts about why. Now, I'm going to admit there's a little hindsight here because, while trying to complete both degrees, I wasn't exactly doing a lot of self-analysis about my course selection decision-making. So I reflected preparing for today and tried to come up with, back then what would have been my thought process, which isn't too dissimilar from now, but again, I think I have a few more years under my belt. So the first reason for me, and it really touches on some comments that Red made, is I've always been a person looking for context. I've always been asking the questions, why is it that way and how did it get that way? And when you're studying business, history, Canadian business history, is a key provider of context, the why and the how. The second reason I took the course is a bit specific to me, and it's informed by my studies at the law school, where legal history is a fundamental part not only of your curriculum, but of every course. You start at the beginning, and you move through the development of the law. So for me, the question of how did the law evolve to say I owe my neighbor a duty of care shouldn't be any more or less important than how did Canadian industry evolve such that we have a small number of fundamentally strong and dominant banks. Why would I study one and not the other if I'm studying both law and history? The third reason is, I think, a little bit less obvious, and as I read a little bit preparing for today, I really didn't see this covered anywhere. I knew that my career, whether it was going to be in business or law or anything else, was going to be spent among smart and sophisticated people. And I wanted to be able to go toe-to-toe with the best of them. And I believed, and still believe, which I'll talk about a little bit later, that a key component of being able to do that is knowledge of the history of my industry. And the fourth reason is in part to do with the fact that I'm a woman, which I know is pretty obvious, but at the time I was here, and I don't know whether it's different, there were only 30% women in the class, in the MBA class. And, although women are making great strides in Canadian business, it's still relatively recent, and there's still a long way to go. And again, I knew that I wanted to be able to hold my own in any room, and felt that knowledge of Canadian business history was going to help me do that. So I decided to take the course. And I'm sitting where you are on the first day, and Joe Martin walks in, and he tells us, okay, so here's what it's going to be. The course covers Canadian business history from approximately Confederation to the present. It's divided into 4 historical time periods, about 1850 to 1905, 1905 to 1955, 1955 to 1980, and 80 to the present, which obviously cover huge differences in what was going on in the Canadian economy, global economy, geopolitical events, all kinds of different things. And along the way, students are asked to think about 4 themes: political structures and public policy, financial systems, entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship, and large corporations and managerial capabilities. It is primarily a case-based course with largely original cases that take you through those time periods and touch on those themes. The very first case is about the origins of our financial system, the Bank Act of 1871. How many people, even who work in banking, know anything about the Bank Act of 1871 or how it led to where we are today? We also talked about Hudson's Bay Company and Massey Harris, the National Energy Program, the CNR, Inco, Nortel, Eaton's, the FTA, RBC. It's everything that you would think, well, of course a business person should know about those things. But I only learned about them in this class. The course challenges students to think critically. What went right or wrong? What can we learn from entrepreneurs like Garfield Weston or failures like Eaton's? I don't mean that personally, not the Eaton's family. Failures like the Eaton's Corporation. And at the end of the course, I felt that I had a solid understanding of the major themes of Canadian business history over the last 150 years. I understood better the interaction between financial systems and business, how public policy has evolved and affected different industries, that trade, particularly with the US, has been an ongoing and ever-changing issue, and that Canada was full of tons of opportunity if you had big ideas. And I believed that even as a young person starting out in my career, I could go into any room and would be better able to hold my own in conversation with just about anybody because I had gained these insights. Since I graduated from Rotman, I've been a corporate litigator on Bay Street doing bet the company litigation and a family office investor looking for returns. And I can tell you that my knowledge of Canadian business history has helped me regularly in both of those very different endeavors. And that brings me to my third topic, which is why do I think as a general proposition this study is important? Why, if I were advising a young MBA, regardless of the direction they anticipated their career would take, why would I tell them to take a course on Canadian business history? I identified 4 reasons. The first is history as a learning tool, which isn't a novel idea. As an MBA, you learn a lot of rules-based information. Debits and credits, net present value, ROI, capital account. But you're also expected to develop the ability to think critically and, one hopes, creatively. And one of the best ways to develop these higher level capabilities is by studying examples, and particularly real-world examples. So, okay, if you're going to sharpen your critical thinking skills, why not use a Canadian whetstone, which again touches on some of the themes that Red was talking about. The second reason I think this study is important is that it puts issues into context, as I think was very well demonstrated with your anecdote about Thailand, and you know, the assertion you wouldn't go into another country to do business without understanding a little bit about its industry's background. And yet, we sort of, MBAs could go off into the world, into Canadian banking or the Canadian business generally, without understanding the background of our own country and where they hope to practice. You know, studying history isn't about some magic 8-ball that's going to show you the right answer to the challenge that you're facing. The situations are too dissimilar for that. But it's about showing you context. It's about, as Red commented, themes, opportunities, and challenges that other people have faced that you can learn from and develop your contextual thinking in that arena. I think we can look at a very timely example, which is the potentially far-reaching renegotiation of NAFTA. For the uninitiated, they may think back to, you know, the horrifying pre-1994 days before NAFTA or pre-1989 before the FTA, without realizing that our trading relationship with the U.S. has ebbed and flowed and evolved for a lot longer than that and has had many different faces and characteristics than in that short time period. In fact, and I did have to go back into my notes to remember the details of this, our very first Prime Minister faced free trade with the U.S. as a major issue, and somewhat paradoxically was advocating for the imposition of a large tariff on goods imported from the U.S. in order to drive the Americans to the bargaining table to ultimately achieve free trade. Now, he wasn't successful for a whole bunch of reasons, including political ones, but this issue goes back that far and further past Confederation. So if you're a business person or a policy person or an economist or even a journalist and you're tackling this issue about NAFTA right now, you're making strategic decisions, you're making operational decisions, even financial decisions or lobbying decisions. There's no way that you can say to me that your decision-making would not be improved by knowledge of that long history and how it has ebbed and flowed over time. So I'll turn to my third reason, sorry, we're almost there, which is about professional engagement within your company and without. And this touches on what I mentioned before, one of the reasons I took this course. And again, it's not something I've seen much in the literature, but it's something that I personally believe is very important. You know, business schools seek to produce graduates who are going to excel in industry, of course. But it takes more than memorizing how to calculate ROI or being a wizard with Excel. You also need to be a well-rounded, nuanced individual. And I believe that truly excellent graduates need to have some appreciation of their context, of the historical context in which they are working in order to truly shine. Finally, the fourth point is that Canada is unique. Duh. Well, not so duh, because a lot of the cases that I studied, good cases, useful cases here at Rotman, were not Canadian cases, and they taught me all kinds of important things. But, you know, we don't we don't practice business in the US. We don't practice business in the UK or anywhere else. We are here with our laws and regulations and structures and geography and values and opportunities and fears. And so if you're going to, again, be developing your own skills as an MBA, if, I suppose, you plan on staying in Canada, perhaps it's different if you intend on leaving right away, you need to appreciate this specificity of this place and how it influences Canada's industry, which you'll be far better able to do with the study of Canadian business history. You know, the title of my talk today, whether you looked at it or not, is a paraphrase of the well-known quotation that those who ignore the past are doomed to repeat its mistakes. I use this title in two ways. I use it specifically in that if you are ignorant of the mistakes of those who came before you, you are certainly at risk of repeating them. And if you're not ignorant of them, I think you're less likely to repeat them, although not 100%. But I also offer it as a general proposition. Being ignorant of the past and in a sense, choosing to be ignorant of the past is like turning a blind eye to this entire area of rich information that can be leveraged to optimize both individual and institutional success. So my fourth point is just a comment about the future. And it's something that occurred to me as I prepared and in connection with this business school. What I do now is effectively I'm a tech investor. So I think about the future all the time. What's the next big technology? What industry is about to be disrupted? Where are there opportunities? And for sure, my knowledge of the past, gained in part through the study of Canadian business history, helps me address those questions every day. But I was struck recently by the importance of the knowledge of history in connection with this business school. With part of, I read a lot about technology and theories of what's happening, what's coming. We're talking all about what's happened, but I need to focus on what's coming. As some of you may know, Ajay Agarwal is a Rotman professor who is very active in the Canadian innovation scene, in part through the founding of the Creative Destruction Lab here at Rotman, of which I am pleased to have recently become an associate. And with his colleagues, Abby Goldfarb and Joshua Gans, Professor Agarwal has written a fair bit on innovation and more recently on artificial intelligence and what it means in the future for not Canadians specifically, for business and the economy. And I just want to bear with me for a second. I just want to talk to you about one aspect of their analysis that really hit home for me as I was preparing. They explain that all aspects of human activities can be described by 5 high-level components: data, prediction, judgment, action, and outcome. They further state that AI is making prediction, one of those 5 components, i.e. using data to suggest a certain outcome, cheaper, faster, and more accurate. They then posit that, using pretty standard economic theory, as the cost of prediction drops because of the developments of AI, the value of its complementary goods will go up. You drop the cost of baseballs, the value of baseball bats goes up. Pretty standard. So wouldn't you know that a key complementary good to prediction is judgment? So if AI continues to deliver on its promises, in part making prediction cheaper, human judgment will increase in both value and importance. So those who have well-informed, nuanced, thoughtful judgment going forward will be more likely to succeed. They're the ones whose jobs are definitely not going to be replaced by AI. And one of the key ways that you develop strong judgment is through the study of history. Thank you.